environment for small businesses and insurance companies to compete to keep the prices down. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Sanders, you want it?
I think one of the things we need to address is cost, which this bill did not address. And one of the reasons, in fact, the reason it was not addressed was the death tax. If you guys remember, in August 2009, all of a sudden, the Screaming Chicken Little started saying again that the death penalty is going to take your grandmother and send her to the zoo somewhere. That's not the case. And we didn't then address the cost because the largest expense in the healthcare system is the last 6 months of life. And we didn't talk about that because our politicians on the right allowed the media and allowed themselves to be taken away from what really functions. 50% of total life healthcare expenditures usually come in the last 6 months. And until we address those costs and those issues, we're not going to fix healthcare's problem. We're going to continue to see our healthcare costs go up and up and up. So that's what I'm thinking we need to talk about. Until we talk about that, we need to focus on reform, we need to focus on medicine, we also need to focus on administrative costs. But at the end of the day, it's where we go with the end-of-life decisions.
Mr. Platts?
Thank you. Ryan and I disagree on the merits of the bill as passed. We do agree on the concern that the reality that this bill did not address costs, and there's a number of reasons why it did not. But very much in the forefront of those is Speaker Pelosi's approach. This is a systemic change in how we provide health care. It should have been openly debated. It should have been well considered. The public should have had plenty of time to review it. The first time we voted on the floor, I think there was 205 amendments. The Speaker allowed, through the Rules Committee, one of those 205 amendments to be voted. The second time, it was around 100 amendments were offered. All sorts of cost reduction proposals. The Speaker allowed 0 amendments to be voted. That's not democracy at work. That's not an open debate and dialogue. That's not about getting good solutions. That's about my way or no way. And that's Speaker Pelosi's problem, is no interest in truly working across the aisle or even within her own caucus. I think 105 of those amendments denied on the first time were her caucus's amendments. We need an open process to truly get about reducing the cost of health care. Thank you.
Mr. Monighan? Rebuttal?
Thank you.
Just a note to our audience, if you have questions that you think you'd like to ask at the end of this next question, we'll have students collect your index card. Just to give you coming attractions, we have a question about college debt. The third question will have to do with job creation and the stimulus package. The fourth question will have something to do with infrastructure spending in the state. So we'll be covering those. If you have other ideas that you'd like to hear the candidates respond to, now's the time. Write a question on the card, raise your hand, and one of the students will come and get it from you at the end of the next question. Okay, so question number 2, and it will be Mr. Platts, then Mr. Monighan, and Mr. Sanders. And it is this. Very simply, what do you intend to do to help college students manage their student debt?
This is a question I have great familiarity with, given that I paid off my last student loans as a member of Congress. Could not have gotten my undergrad degree at Shippensburg. I actually acknowledged my freshman year here at Dickinson, but graduated from Shippensburg, and my law degree from Pepperdine. I could not have advanced myself academically without the support of student loans. My wife the same. We both were blessed with access to loans and grants, and didn't have a problem paying back because it was allowing us to advance ourselves. So again, here's where I'm delighted to be judged on my record and my strong support for increasing student loan assistance, whether it be in the sense of guaranteed student loan program, Pell Grants, but about saying to students, we want you to do better, we want you to advance yourselves, and we're willing to help, because ultimately if we do that, it's not just the student who's blessed, it's the country at large, it's a society that's blessed. So I supported various pieces of legislation that increased both the loan limits, I think supported the eligibility as far as Pell Grants. One good example would be the Deficit Reduction Act 2005, where we saved about $20 billion out of the Guaranteed Student Loan Program. It seems funny, that doesn't sound like you're helping students. But what we did is we saved that money from the lenders, not from the students. The lenders who were taking advantage of the program and getting a windfall at the taxpayers' expense. Of that $20 billion, roughly $12 billion of it went back to taxpayers in the form of deficit reduction. $8 billion of it went to more student aid. More recently, I was one of the few Republicans in the committee who supported direct student loans, eliminating the middleman in the student loan program. The CBO tells us that will save almost $90 billion over 10 years. A large amount of that is going into additional student assistance. One quick disclaimer is that ended up being lumped into the health care bill at the last minute, and I voted against the health care bill, even though that was in there because of the problems with the health care bill. But I support the underlying student loan, direct student loan program, and the reforms to it.
Thank you, Mr. Monighan.
I feel the solution that the students really need to have is a sound economic environment. So when they get out of the college realm and move into the employment force, the private sector, there's got to be two things. There's got to be a good environment for entrepreneurship where jobs can be created, and there has to be a place where they're getting stable income and stable wages that keep up with the economy and aren't being devalued by currency issues. Thank you.
Mr. Sanders.
College education is probably the most important part of American exceptionalism. It's the thing that makes us stand out. It's the thing that makes us the best country in the world where everybody else wants to be. This puts us at the forefront of research and development. Offers the best minds in the world is one of the key reasons for us to be the most powerful nation here. We need to protect that advantage. And I advocate that in addition to increasing childhood education, we need to make sure that we have support for the GI Bill, expanding that and growing it, and also maybe a program like the National Science Foundation, which has been used in years past to increase the number of scientists and engineers that support our research and environment and innovation. There might be one other issue that we should address, though, and this is, in fact, this campus right here. We, I think, pay about $40,000 a year to go to this campus. That's not cheap. It's part of the education you can get. But it is one thing I think that the universities, the students, the parents, we all need to think about what we're paying for and what we're getting. I love this campus more than anything. This is one of the reasons I came to Dickinson was because of the campus. But we have to keep in mind, you get what you pay for. If you want a campus like this, you're going to have to pay $40,000 a year. Not everybody can afford that. That means we need to offer alternatives, or we need to offer financial aid. That means community colleges and state universities have to be careful. They cannot compete with private schools aiming for something like this. They need to be making sure that access to everybody is offered and available. They can't be cutting people out because they can't afford it. Because you know as well as I do that the poor as well as the rich are just as capable. And we need to make sure that we have equal and a fair starting point for everybody. And that's where it starts. So thank you very much.
Anything to add, Mr. Platts?
Yes, thank you. I mentioned what we need to do to help students up front, guarantee student loans, Pell Grants, other assistance. Bottom line, most students graduating today, with rare exceptions, are going to have debt. And so the question then goes to how to manage it. And the best way we can help students manage it is to ensure that they're able to find well-paying jobs when they graduate. Because to pay back that debt, you need income. And so that gets into the whole economic question of the comprehensive energy policy, healthcare costs being brought down, the tax structure that encourages investment in America and doesn't drive jobs overseas where it's less expensive. We need to be focused on them having a job, because without it, they can't manage their debt because they don't have income. And today, the policies we have, and we have plans like the stimulus plan last year, it didn't lower the unemployment rate. It spent a lot of money and made it harder for all Americans because that's money they have to pay now or future generations have to. So we need to have sound fiscal policies in Washington because all these things relate to a strong economy, good paying jobs for the graduates. Thank you.
Mr. Monighan?
Thank you.
And Mr. Sanders?
I actually have I think Todd and I agree on just about everything that last comment. We said, we need to focus on this. There's a couple of things we're missing here. And the most important may be to start with stimulus. One thing is I hate hearing, we constantly hear this refrain, is that the stimulus didn't create jobs. I don't know where Todd is getting this information, but I've seen it on every informational source I can get, whether it's an economist, whether it's Chamber of Commerce, whether it's I saw Mark Zandy, who's he had testimony in Congress and was a former advisor to John McCain for the 2008 campaign. Everyone's saying that if we hadn't put the stimulus in place, our economy would have twice the unemployment rate is right now. We would have a 16% or higher unemployment rate. That's depression. We avoided depression because of the stimulus. And until we start talking on the same page, we're not going to be helping our students, we're not going to be helping our aging, we're going to be going around in circles after circles. This is about leadership. It's about who understands what actually is working.
Okay, thank you. We're on to question 3 now. This is the time, if you have questions on your index cards, raise those hands, and some of our good workers will come by and pick them up from you. So question 3, we'll go with Mr. Monighan, then Mr. Sanders, then Mr. Platts. Number 3 has to do with stimulus and job creation, and the question is this. There are many opinions on the success or failure of the usage of stimulus funding in the past and perhaps in the future. And the question is, what do you think the federal government's role is with regard to job creation? How could they stimulate it? And is the stimulus part of the problem or part of the solution? So, Mr. Monighan.
The way I look at it is, and a job that is a true job that's going to help our economy as a whole and every individual in this land has to be a job that's first in the private sector. If you're putting jobs in the government sector, it's funded with taxpayer dollars. So stimulus money, depending on how it was spent, there's a large majority of stimulus money that still have to be spent. A lot of it didn't get to where it was supposed to go. It's not helping the individuals. A lot of times it's helping special interests or major monopolies or international corporations. So every dollar that's taken and put towards the bigger corporations, what happens is it diverts money from the individuals. It actually drives the middle class towards poverty. So I don't feel that stimulus is helping the economy, and I also feel that we're in a downward trend. And we're just seeing market instabilities right now, and we need to find out real solutions to create real jobs. And the way to do it is private sector, entrepreneurship, small business owners, individuals need to be able to enterprise, and that's the only way we're going to get out of this. Thank you.
Mr. Sanders?
Let me be clear about this. There are many opinions on stimulus, but the facts lead you to only one conclusion. I brought along a little research here, and let me make a quote. This is from Mark Zandy, former advisor John McCain, who works for Moody's now, and he did this with Alan Kleiner. What this says is, while the effectiveness of any individual element certainly can be debated, there is little doubt that in total, the policy response of the stimulus and policy from the TARP plan were highly effective. If policymakers had not reacted as aggressively or quickly as they did, the financial system might still be unsettled, the economy might still be shrinking, and the cost to U.S. taxpayers would have been vastly greater. But you can't deny, these guys are not biased. One was a Republican, one's a Democrat. They've done this research, they've done it for a long time. These guys are experts. The stimulus stabilized the economy, and I'm happy to hear with the lies that Mr. Platts and his leaders in Congress continue to espouse. It's not true. It's just not true. We can debate the success of individual pieces, but the stimulus itself did what we wanted it to. And instead of working with us, Mr. Platts ignored all the data that proves this. Quite frankly, I don't understand why we go, the long-term strength of our economy is coming from focusing on these practical results that help us get the answers. So you go through this